Greetings and shalom. This is Adrian Scott, and I welcome you to Truth and Testimony, the broadcast. It is time for another edition of Bible Break, where we are going to be continuing our reading in the book of Genesis, this time doing chapter 6. Now, unlike the previous chapter, which was a little boring, other than me fumbling through some names, this chapter is loaded. So without any further ado, I'm just going to skip past the formalities and let's start reading because there is a lot to talk about. Genesis, or in Hebrew, Bereshit, which means in the beginning, chapter 6. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make it in the ark, and shall pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above, and the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. With lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life, from under heaven. And everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, 2 of every sort shall come unto thee, to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him, so did he. Okay, so there is chapter 6. Now, let's get right into the meat of this stuff. The first thing is Now, I'm going to say pretty much everything I'm going to touch on here is debated, and there's no definitive answer, I would say. So you just kind of have to make up your own mind and go with that based on the best evidence and information and knowledge that you can acquire for yourself that makes sense for you. Ultimately, I would say that a lot of this stuff, it's a case of doing the best you can with what you have, because God will recognize that although you may be wrong on something, although I am certainly wrong on some things, that the intentions of the heart was to be faithful to God and to His Word to the best of your ability. There are just some things that we don't have access to. There's some things we don't understand. There's a lot of things I don't understand in the scriptures, but it is just that idea of doing the best you can, really the best you can with what you have. And there will be mistakes in there, but He sees that. He knows that. He doesn't expect us to be perfect. He just doesn't. So just know that there's lots of debate. You can have different opinions on this, and that's all fine. We can still come together as children of God and share in a community where we know that God is the creator. Yehovah is the creator of the heavens and the earth. And that Yeshua, His only begotten Son, sacrificed for us, paid the penalty for our failings to restore a relationship between us and the Father. That it is a gift of grace from God. That salvation and redemption. And then you can nitpick on what calendar do we follow? What day is the Sabbath? Should we do the appointed times or not? You can have those conversations, but at the end of all of them, you should be able to put the differences aside and still come together as a body of believers on those basic foundations. Okay, having made my disclaimer, let's get into it. So it touches in verse 2 of the first part of it, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and took them wives of all which they chose. One of the prevailing theories, and it is the one that I hold to, I can be persuaded to something else, but it would have to be with some pretty rock solid information, but that these sons of God are the fallen angels. Or I don't want to say, well, I guess you would have to say demons, but fallen angels at any rate. And that they took them wives when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. That was verse 4. So I think that's where you start to see a polluting of the perfect and pure DNA that God had created. This is where the term it uses in the Bible here, in the King James and in many other versions, is wicked. I'm sure we've all heard that term. But the idea of wicked seems to come from this concept of something that is twisted. So it's not even that in and of itself it is bad, but that this thing, which may not be bad on its own, has been twisted and is wicked, kind of like a wick on a candle. It's twisted, right? Therefore, no longer being good because it's been twisted into something else. It has become wicked. And that's what I think happened with the DNA here, that you do get giants. I recently did a video on giants. If you have not seen that, I do encourage you to go back and check it out. There's a lot of resources that go much deeper than I do in that video, but it's an introduction. It's a way to get your feet wet. And as always, I encourage you to do some more research on your own. Look for those other materials. Look for the books. Look for the information that is out there. But that there were giants. But it's not limited to giants. There's reports of all kinds of crazy things, having 2 rows of teeth, having 6 fingers and 6 toes, having elongated skulls. I can't remember the exact numbers, but in a human skull, there's a certain number of plates, and that on some skulls, there's a different number of plates. I think there's 3 plates on the human skull, but they have found skulls that only have 2 plates. and that could be a twisting or a wickedness of man as a result of this. This is all theory. This is all just my opinion, and it is the theory that I believe at the moment, but it's a possibility at least. I think it's at least plausible, okay? But that's what you get, and that's where it touches on this idea right here. That again, at the beginning of verse 4, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Now, there's one great Hebrew roots teacher that I have the world of respect for, but he has a differing opinion. That he seemed to think that there were not actual literal giants, that you're talking men of renown, men of stature, men of figure, of prominence, perhaps of particular strength or prowess, right? But that it wasn't anything to the extreme like that. And he's got some reasons for believing that, and he's not the only one. I still respect almost everything he says, and I can even respect him on that one, even if I don't agree with him. But this is where in verse 5 it makes that comment, and God saw that the wickedness, that twisting of man, and I say that's a twisting of the DNA, literally a twisting of the DNA. There's a one thing I do believe is foundationally there is a physical meaning to things, and then a natural meaning, and then a spiritual or a prophetic meaning, so that they have more than one meaning. And I totally believe that God is capable of teaching more than one thing at a time with any given verse in his word. But that wickedness, it could be symbolic, it could be figurative, but it could also be that literal twisting, that wickedness of the DNA. And that it was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of the heart. So let's just clarify that. Not just the thoughts of the heart, the imaginations of the thoughts of the heart were evil continually, and God knows them. And it repented him that he had made man, and he vowed to destroy them. So here's where it kind of starts transitioning into the second phase of this, and it's where it talks about Noah. And in verse 8 and 9, it mentions, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. Now, with this idea that there's kind of that natural or physical application and then the spiritual application to stuff, I absolutely believe that he was a just and righteous person, and he walked with God in that sense, that spiritual sense, right? But on a physical side of this, could this reference the idea when he's found just and perfect in his generations, that it's a case of his DNA strain, his DNA line was not twisted or corrupted by these fallen sons of God that had intermingled with the women of men and had children with them, as we catch in verse 4 and proceeding after that. So just a thought, just asking the question. I don't know for certain. I'm throwing the idea out there. Could it reference that? It's something that I think, I kind of lean towards that, but I'm not absolutely beholden to it. Okay, I acknowledge I could be wrong. But just that idea. So why was he and his family selected? Because their DNA was not twisted or wicked. Then there's a little line that kind of touches on into this stuff, which is something that I've always held, and I just to look at it a slightly different perspective on stuff. And it's in verse 13 when it says, and God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Now, it seems like a traditional viewpoint of that was man was so wicked and corrupt and just constantly battling and warring with each other and vicious and brutal and violent, and the imaginations of the thoughts of his hearts were evil continually and all of those things. I propose this idea because it doesn't say that they had filled the earth with this violence, right? But it says in this line, the earth is filled with violence through them. So what could that mean? Could that, and again, I'm just putting the question out there, could that be talking about, maybe things like earthquakes and hurricanes and hailstorms and other violent natural phenomena, flare-ups of volcanoes, that all of these things increased as the wickedness of man increased? Because one thing I do believe is God's creation across the universe is intertwined together. There's common threads in all of it. You can see the commonalities. It's like looking at paintings from a famous artist. Each painting may have a different theme. It may touch on a different topic, but you can still see the brush strokes and the use of paint and the use of material that you can look at multiple paintings and know it's the same person that painted each of those pictures, even if the pictures themselves are quite different. I think you look at the same thing with God's creation. He created everything. He's the architect and the artist behind it all. And he created them with differences. He created them with variety, right? But there'd still be a common thread. And I think that that creation is more interconnected than a lot of us realize. And I think science is just starting to dabble with that now, where they're seeing these things about frequencies and harmonics interconnecting stuff, and how they're doing experiments where they're testing reactions on a person, and they have plants in the room, and they can actually test the plants reacting to what the person is experiencing, just being in proximity. I think there's a connection there. And if this wickedness and evil of man is truly that rampant and that bad, would it not reflect negatively in that creation? Could that be what he's talking about here? And more importantly, could that be part of what we are seeing in the world today? Because right now, I think the world on a whole is about as godless as it has been in a long, long time. And I wonder if there's a connection between our falling away from God now, our descent into wickedness where we're calling evil good and good evil, if all of these things are not related to the idea of an increase in maybe not the number of, but the severity of, possibly the number of as well, these different storm phenomena, and just like I said, violent natural catastrophes and stuff that are occurring. I kind of half jokingly have made the comment in the past to say I don't subscribe to the idea of man-made climate change in terms of us driving around in our SUVs are destroying the environment. I don't believe that. I'll always say I think we should be good stewards of God's creation. And if there's anything to that, we should take it very seriously. But half jokingly, I've said I do believe in man-made climate change. But the man-made climate change I'm thinking of is not what most of those people are thinking of, because my man-made climate change is our descent into godlessness and lawlessness resulting in natural catastrophes increasing. So that's just my point on that one. Now, the last thing, and I will kind of wrap it up on this, I guess, is just the ark itself. Now, there's more about the ark and something of significance that's going to come up in chapter 7. So when I do that video next, you'll absolutely want to, check that one out. Really, I'm setting this up as a playlist, so it's all going to be together on its own. And I do recommend, if you can, go through the whole thing. I've tried not to make them ridiculously long videos or anything, but to get to the point and keep them short and sweet while still being informative. But there'll be some really interesting stuff connecting to Noah and the ark in chapter 7 as well. However, it mentions the idea of loading 2 of every creature onto the boat, one male, one female. The point of this being that when the flood was to end, that all these creatures would come off the boat and would be able to start breeding and reproducing and repopulating and refilling the planet after everything has been wiped out. It is interesting because it does mention in particular in verse 20 of fowls after their kind, of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. So the idea is, because, I mean, one of the age-old questions is, how are they supposed to fit all the animals on this boat? Right? Well, they don't have to fit all the animals. They only had to fit 2 of each basic species because the variations within each species are within the DNA structure of the 2 they brought on that boat. So the example that's been used time and time again are dogs. They didn't have to bring 2 Labrador retrievers, 2 golden retrievers, 2 German shepherds, 2 Chihuahuas, 2 Shih Tzus, 2 Dobermans. They didn't have to do that. They just needed 2 dogs, 1 male, 1 female, because all of the potential in the DNA for those variations that would come after they come off the earth and settle in different areas and have different requirements are all present there. And it has room for those variations to occur. And it just keeps hitting that, of their kind, after their kind, after their kind. It doesn't have to, you don't have to have 2 wolves. Wolves are a form of dog, right? It all comes from the same family. And it all originally, I do believe, came from 1 dog-like creature, whatever you want to call it, 1 male, 1 female that went on the ark. Considering the alternative is you believe that all the dogs of the earth came from raining on rocks for millions of years, which idea really sounds crazy? I'll leave that one there. But it's really that idea, because it really stresses it as you're reading this in this chapter, after their kind, after their kind, after their kind. Like, maybe God is trying to make a point here. So that's a big one. And the last thing I'll mention is, so it does get into, where is it here? In verse, really from verse 14 through 16, I would say, where it actually gets into the measurements and stuff. So this gives us some idea of how big this thing would be. It mentions that the length of it will be 300 cubits. The breadth of it would be 50 cubits, and the height of it, 30 cubits. It'll have a window in it. It'll have a door on the side. We get basic things like that. The reason for saying this is one organization that I've always really liked is a group called Answers in Genesis. And one thing that Answers in Genesis got behind was a project, which I don't know the exact town. I'll provide a link to their website down below. They did a recreation to make it as accurate as they possibly could of Noah's Ark to scale, the proper size of it. And this is a incredible opportunity to take the family down there. Check this thing out. It is very impressive. There's a quick picture I'm going to flash up on the screen, but you got to see this thing in person. I have not had the chance. My daughter actually has, and kind of jealous of her for that one. But at some point, I'd love to get down there and check it out. But you can go. You can book tickets. You can buy tickets. Get down there. Go check it out. Called Ark Encounter. And it's in Kentucky. Like I said, I don't know the exact name of the town that it's in or near, but it is in Kentucky, and that information you'd find on their website anyways. But again, check out that link if you're at all interested, or you can even just look online for some images and it'll give you some idea. But I think it's a trip worth making. If you can make the time to go to Disneyland, you should be able to make the time to go to Ark Encounter and actually spiritually fill yourself. So there's my little promotion for Ark Encounter. Check that one out. Fascinating stuff. With that, I'm going to wrap it up there. And so next time we will cover chapter 7. And again, there's some big things that kind of connect to the ark and what happens. We're not done with that narrative yet, because there's some big things that are still coming in there. And until then, I just wish blessings to all of you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus our Savior. And don't forget that if you did like the video, please give it a thumbs up. share it with others. If you have not done so, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you are notified whenever Ray or I do post our content. And we look forward to seeing you in the next video. So I say shalom and bye for now.